Okay, so another important theme, as I've said a few times now, is the assumption that we can study the mind independently of the brain. So just like we can study the software of a computer uh, without knowing anything about the hardware, we can also study the hardware, and also we can study the hardware without knowing anything about the software. And this is the same idea with the mind. And David Marr was actually a neuroscientist and a cognitive scientist in the 1980s and 1990s. He actually died prematurely, but he was one of the most influential cognitive scientists we've ever had. But he had this great quote, which said that trying to understand perception by studying only neurons is like trying to understand by bird flight by studying only feathers. It just can't be done. Um, and similarly, trying to understand the brain is not really going to help us by itself to understand how the mind works. And so the other thing is that in order to understand bird flight, we have to understand the laws of aerodynamics. So if we know the rules of aerodynamics, right, we can then look at the feathers, the structure of the feathers and different shapes and variation in bird wings, and we can say, okay, this is why this feather is more efficient than this other kind of feather and why it implements the rules of aerodynamics better than maybe another kind of feather. Um, but it's more difficult to interpret this by only studying the feathers, right? You need some sort of understanding of the rules of aerodynamics. And this is also related to what we call multiple realizability. So the assumption here, as I said, is that the rules of the mind may be multiply realizable. And this just means that the rules of the mind can be realized on different mediums. This is actually one of the hopes for strong artificial intelligence. The goals of artificial intelligence assume that the rules of the mind can be multiply realizable. So, for example, vision may be done by a computer, but if we knew exactly how vision worked, we could write a program and put it on a computer, and it would behave identically to how human vision works. And so, this is really similar to functionalism. And functionalism is the idea that things can be classified or categorized based on their function. And functionalism critically assumes that the mind could conceivably be implemented on any physical system, artificial or natural, as long as it's capable of supporting the appropriate computation. In any case, in the next video, we'll talk about some dichotomies between modularity, interactivity, as well as serial and parallel processing, as well as different types of representations.